Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching 8th part of What If Naruto was denied to be a ninja but still overpowered. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Wave Country was a country that was growing quickly and was friends with Waterfall, Marsh, Fang, Smoke, and Chill. The country was also partially allied with Konoha, Suna, Kiri, and maybe even Kumo. Wave had business relationships with Kumo, Snow Country, Demon Country, and the village hidden in the shadows that were based on friendship and trade. Like every other shinobi village or country, Wave Country had no problems with Iron Country. Iwagakure and Hidden in the Sound Village were the only towns that were not on good terms with Wave. Even though it wasn't his main goal, Naruto brought peace to the other villages he was allied with, whether fully or not, through contact with them. Even though Wave was the only member of the 6 Minor Village Alliance with ties to other villages and countries, Marsh Village was also allied with Hidden Mountain. This made relations with all the other members of the 6 Village Alliance more even, making it easier to trade and move shinobi between villages. Smoke was friends with Feather Village, a shinobi village that was at odds with Fang Village. However, when Smoke and Feather Village became friends, they agreed to put their differences aside and trade for the good of those under them. Even though Wave wasn't officially on Feather's side, he got along well with the Hidden Village. Some civilians even asked to move there and open shops. This could be said about his relationships with the major hidden villages. For example, Sanagakure wasn't officially allied with Mountain Village, but there were Suna shinobi working together on missions right now. This was because they had seen that the 6 Village Alliance was real and, by extension, that the villages allied with each other were also worth working with. With each village allying with either Wave or any other village Wave was allied with, the idea was spreading unintentionally that order could be kept if everyone worked well together. So far, no other village had had any big fights or complaints that couldn't be solved on the spot. That's what he said to Nagato. There are easier ways to seek peace, Nagato. I found peace in Wave, and it seems to have spread to the villages I am allied with, both directly and indirectly. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it's what happened. I have no complaints, Naruto said as he looked down at the tied-up Rinnegan holder. I understand that you've lost almost everything, and I'm sorry, but to seek peace by putting everyone through pain. Nagato looked up at Naruto with his purple eyes that rippled and asked, "What do you call yourself then, Naruto?" "I'm a shinobi," he said simply, putting his hands on his knees and squeezing his lips together. "Give me a reason not to kill you, Nagato." "I have none," he said, and he wasn't being stubborn. It was the truth. "Fine," Naruto said, pulling a kunai out of his right sleeve. He was about to slit the Rinnegan holder's throat when he heard a voice behind him. "Wait." The boy hummed and looked to see who had called out. It was the girl with purple hair that he had just knocked out. Don't kill him, please." Her cloak was torn in places, showing her purple thigh-length shirt with a slit in the middle so everyone could see her toned stomach. "I'm begging you," Konan begged Naruto as she knelt down in front of him with her forehead touching the ground. Her usual calm face was gone, replaced by tears that ran down her pale porcelain face, smeared her black eyeliner, and wiped off her purple lipstick. "And why shouldn't I kill him? He took me away from my home and threatened to destroy everything I've built. He's the only one I have left," she begged with her head still bowed. She couldn't attack Naruto because he had already beaten the strongest person she knew. "Before Wave, I didn't have anyone, and he threatened to take that away from me," Naruto said calmly as he tightened his grip on his knife and drove it deeper into Nagato's neck. When Naruto looked at Nagato, he saw that the man's eyes were already closed and that he had a sad look on his face. After 5 minutes of tense silence, Naruto raised his hand and let the kunai slide back into his sleeve. Once the tip was out of sight, the kunai disappeared without even leaving a bulge. He got up and dusted off his black ninja pants and then his Junin flak jacket. He then looked at the woman who was still kneeling and said, "I won't kill him yet." Konan was relieved and quietly thanked him. "I will give you both 2 choices," he said. "Yes," she said right away, giving Nagato a hard look to tell him to shut up. He was still very much at the blonde powerhouse's mercy. "The first option is that I kill you both and put this whole village into stasis in case they come after me," he said. This was because Minato and Kushina had used the same seal to keep their house safe all these years, even though Makoto Uchiha went there sometimes to clean up. Naruto's level 10 parents put their minds together to make a containment and restraint seal that didn't just stop chakra explosions but also stop the movement of living and non-living things, including people, and spread it over a large area. Naruto didn't have to be a level 10 to learn the seal, but it did take a lot of concentration. Nagato and Konan looked at him with skepticism. I'm sure you've heard what Wave did to Hoshigakure for just trying to invade. You threatened to destroy my country. Plus, if I can make a trap seal that can hold down a room of low Junin until they are killed, what's to say I can't seal cryo-freeze every member of this village, after killing you and Nagato, of course? He asked. What's the second option? Asked Konan quietly, expecting the worst. The second option, which may sound crazy, is that I want you two to work for me, not as Wave Shinobi but as two highly ranked ninja I can call on for help, and this includes Amigakure. Nagato asked, after everything I've done, why do you still want my help? One of your Akatsuki members, Sasori of the Red Sands, told me that I and my country are going to be attacked soon. He said that Orochimaru and Iwa are going to be behind the attack, and that the Sannin is sending a shinobi trained to kill me. He is a sick, twisted man, so I can only imagine what will happen to Wave after my death. No, I need your help. Konan had already decided what to do, but she looked at the person holding the Rinnegan with some hesitation. Naruto was giving them a chance to live. The first choice wasn't a good one because they would still die, but the second. The boy didn't say they would be his personal servants or even his lapdogs. Instead, he said they were high-ranking shinobi who would help him when he needed it. It was a nod to their pride as powerful shinobi, and yes, I'm also talking about Konan. I'm one of the people who thinks she's also an S-rank ninja. Sorry to break up the story. Nagato just sighed and said, okay, we'll help you. Then we should make a mutual alliance, Naruto said. AIM can join with every other village that is allied with the Minor Six. You will see how this helps, he added after a short pause. Quite frankly, your village is in bad shape. After what we've done, you'll help us rebuild? Konan asked with doubt. Then it's settled, Naruto said with a nod. Hi, where do we have to sign? Naruto looked at the two of them and the clones who were keeping the crowd from hearing before he spoke. I hope you understand. You tried to kill me, and you have jutsu that can easily destroy an entire country. He trailed off as his eyes moved to the restraint seal on Nagato's chest and he realized what Naruto was saying. You want to stamp me with a seal. It's just for insurance. I love my country and every other country and village that my country is friendly with, and a shinobi like you. With a small smile, the older man said, I get it. Are you sure? Hi, most people call me a loose cannon. Nagato, Konan started. It's okay, I get where you're coming from. You can put it on me. Naruto wasn't exactly asking for permission, but he humored the man. First I want to explain just what I'm placing on you, Naruto said and explained. It was a variation of a prisoner control seal he had augmented. He drew it on the Rinnegan holder's forehead and a similar but at the same time a different variation of the seal appeared on the back of Naruto's hand. He showed it to Nagato. It is directly connected to your brain. You may hold negative thoughts about me and my friends, but if you act on them it would first paralyze you and notify me. Then I would fry your brain if I want. I don't need to be in your immediate vicinity to do it too. Believe me when I say that seal is tested and trusted. There were a few Hoshi clan members that had tried to sell secrets to other hidden villages, not fully aware that the villages they intended to sell them to were mutually allied with Wave, which pretty much means they were not formally allied to Wave but were allied to the villages Wave was allied to. Naruto was notified and they were made examples of. As vile as it sounded, it was a necessity to show that he was still the same person that had invaded Hoshigakure. In defense of the young leader, he did warn them. At least now the Hoshi clan is a little bit more loyal to Wave. They didn't seem to like traitors, whether they were from their clan or from Wave as a whole. The eyes are linked to the brain, so. Yes, your eyes are going, too. Do I get one as well? Konan asked. I've already put a tracking seal on you. Don't bother trying to find it, it's very well hidden. It was at the back of her head, somewhere on her scalp. As long as Nagato doesn't die, the woman said with a tired huff. He won't as long as he stays friendly, he said, pulling an empty scroll from one of his bottomless sleeves. The scroll was meant to be sealed, but it would have to do for now. Now, about that alliance. He said, releasing the restraint seal from the Rinnegan holder. The blonde boy stayed for 2 hours and talked about what they would do in the alliance and what they couldn't do. The two of them told him what they wanted from the alliance, and it was settled when he shook hands with the purple-haired woman. Nagato was still tied up, so he didn't shake hands with her. He finally thought of something at this point. Who is that person in the mask? Konan had the same thought. He was just here, she thought. Then she looked around and shrugged. She had never liked that man, so why should she care where he was? Who's that? Uchiha Madara. That's not possible, Naruto said with a laugh. I know, that's what he called himself, but I can tell you that he's a follower of Madara. He has the Sharingan? Naruto asked slowly, worried about what the answer would be. He has the highest form that a Sharingan can have. When Sasuke told the boy about the killing of the Uchiha clan, he said something similar. The young Uchiha said that Itachi's usual Sharingan had changed, and that he was put in a strange genjutsu for hours, but it was only a few minutes before he passed out. Naruto also remembered when Itachi and Kisame came to get him from Tanzuki Town and threw black fire at the two loyal Konoha Sannin. The blonde seal master was sure that wasn't a normal jutsu or even a normal Sharingan ability. The boy didn't know how far the eye techniques could go, so he asked Nagato and Konan to tell him everything they knew about this person in a mask who called himself Madara Uchiha, a name most people wouldn't even think to call themselves if they couldn't back it up. As the two told the 13-and-a-half-year-old boy what they knew about the person who called himself Madara, he realized that almost everything he had done since he was 4 could be easily undone. Madara could teleport himself right in front of him, forcing him to look into his Mangekyo Sharingan, which would put him in a mind-numbing illusion. The man could use a wide-scale black flame attack, Amaterasu, on Wave, and the young Seal Master would be almost helpless to stop it. He could seal the fire, but the problem was that it would easily get through his defenses. He didn't even want to think about how easy it would be for the man to get the Jinchuriki if he really wanted to. All he would have to do is teleport right behind the Jinchuriki, just like he did when he took him from his Kyuubi chakra training room, which was fortified. Madara could just grab the holder of the tailed beast, pull him into a small space, and use genjutsu to hold them down. Things just got really bad. All of this happened before Rai or Kisame, who were still missing after the fight at Wave, were added. Rai could run faster than Daku because she was lightning in human form, and Kisame knew how to fight any shinobi with strange, volatile chakra, Jinchuriki, from years of experience and a sword. Most likely, Madara Uchiha was angry that he had been able to beat the Akatsuki as a whole, though not by himself. A man didn't say he was the most powerful Uchiha in history because he didn't have the skills to back it up. He needed to go back to Wave and set a few more things in motion. So, every Jinchuriki he was friendly with would have a chakra destruction seal and maybe even an automatic Sharingan destruction seal on them. This way, if they were grabbed through teleportation, they could face the man and hold him off until more help arrived. Another problem was that his seal work was always experimental when it came to Kekai Genkai or even clan-based abilities. This made sense, since he couldn't just walk up to a member of the Yamanaka clan and say, "Hey, would you mind if I tried out my mind-body block seal on you? I want to be able to cancel out your Kekai Genkai whenever I want to." You get it, right? To be honest, it was crazy to even think about it. Naruto didn't realize he had been quiet for 30 minutes, staring at the ground with his lips pursed and eyebrows furrowed. He had a sneaking suspicion that the biggest war ever would start with the Sound Rock battle. I have to go back to Wave now, I have things to do. I'll send some of my shinobi to help rebuild your village, he said as he stood up and was about to jump on his flying seal board. Thank you, Naruto, she said as she stood up and gave him a small bow. He waved over his shoulder and said, "Don't make me regret this." Before taking off into the sky. 1 week later. Tamari quickly read through a long scroll and murmured the words under her breath as she stopped in front of the Wave Leader's office door. She gulped and read it again, and then again, before taking a deep breath and putting the scroll in a pocket inside her kimono. She wore a short blue and white battle kimono with short sleeves, black tights that stopped at the middle of her calf, and light blue shinobi sandals. The 15-year-old girl closed her teal-green eyes, took a deep breath, and smoothed out her dress's invisible wrinkles before politely knocking on the door. Enter. When she heard Naruto's voice, she opened the door, peered in, and waved a little to the Wave Leader. "Hey there, Naruto-sama," she said. The blonde boy looked up at her and smiled back. "Tamari," he said. His eyes went over her clothes, which were the same as usual but also different. His nose picked up a faint scent of lily and rose perfume, which he liked to smell when he was drawing nature. "How can I help you?" he asked. The girl snuck in and closed the door quietly, thanking her lucky stars that Frog was working in the reception area and Daku was in the Dark Commander's office. "I came over to say hi and see how you're doing," she said, putting a strand of her blonde hair behind her ear before realizing that her hair was still in her signature 4 bunches. "Thanks for asking, Tamari. I'm fine. How are you?" He looked down at the paper he was reading when she walked in. It was a request to build a fountain inside the mall. He stamped his approval and put the thin paper in the out pile. "I'm fine, too," she said as she bounced on her heels. "But I was wondering." "Yes?" the boy asked as he started to clean up his desk. The girl knew what was going to happen. "Will you be free soon?" Naruto looked at her with raised eyebrows, then slowly nodded and said, "I'm about to leave for my evening break. I'll be back in 3 hours. What do you want me to do?" It was about an hour after sunset. "I was wondering if we could have dinner together," she said. When his eyes widened in horror, she quickly raised her hand and said, "I'm not the cook. There's this nice place in the market district that makes great food." The boy looked at her with his critical blue eyes, and when he saw a hint of red on her cheeks, he smirked slowly. "You know my schedule," he said in a matter-of-fact way. She looked back into his eyes for a full minute, until she let out a nervous giggle and turned away while scratching the back of her neck and saying, "Yeah." The blonde boy took off his wave leader robes and hung them on his office chair. He then showed the blonde girl who was 2 years older than him that he was wearing a short-sleeved light blue shirt with spider web seal tattoos that covered his arms and went into his sleeve, as well as black ninja trousers that went to his calves. He was also wearing his seal glasses, which he took off and put in a storage seal on his neck. The boy led her out of his office and shut the door behind him. She didn't know for sure, but she thought that it was now closed off from the rest of the world. Most likely, only people in his inner circle could get in. The boy put his hands behind his back and started walking to the exit of the main administrative tower of Wave Country. He nodded for her to follow, so she ran after him with her hands clasped in front of her. "Where is this place that you were talking about?" "In the market district, across the street from Hitsurigi-san's grocery store." Hitsurigi was a farmer who moved to Wave from Kiriagakure. He was trying to get dual citizenship, but Naruto gave him special permission. The young man bought a small farm in Outer Wave, near a group of separate farms owned by Wave-born and Hoshi clan members. They walked silently through the well-lit but empty streets of Wave, waving to the few civilians and shinobi who were still out and about, either closing up their shops or going to pick up their kids who were doing extracurricular activities at the civilian academy. Naruto pursed his lips, and Temari saw it out of the corner of her eye. She gasped when she realized what it meant. "Can you tell me what else you know about me, Temari?" I don't know. You know when I take my break on Saturday evenings?" "That's pretty specific, if you ask me," Naruto said, looking at her suspiciously before he smiled and said, "I'm just curious." Suna Kanochi nervously bit the bottom of her lip and looked at the taller blonde before sighing and saying, "Your favorite color is blue, you like ramen, you only sleep for 2 hours every day even though you try to sleep longer. You're a natural sensor but you have seals that boost your senses, you don't need those glasses but you wear them to make you seem less intimidating. In my opinion, it's not working." She looked away and blushed. Naruto laughed and shook his head. "Most of that could be found out in the library," he said. "I just paid attention." "It looks like you did," the boy said as he held the door open for the Suna ninja to walk in. The place was decorated in a style that is popular right now. It had warm, nostalgic furniture and appliances that made people feel like they were at home, if they had a home. The cafe had small tables in a bar where people could sit and order food. This is where the two blondes sat down. A man with bushy eyebrows and a white long-sleeved shirt with rolled-up sleeves and black formal trousers with braces walked up to them and smiled. "Welcome to Ivy's Coast, my name is Tsurugi. What can I get you, Naruto-sama and Temari-san?" he asked, pointing to the long menu hanging behind him. Naruto squinted his eyes and said, "I don't know." "A number 3 and 1, please, I'm in the mood for something light," he said, propping an elbow on the bar counter and turning to Temari. "Please give me the same." The man wrote down their orders in a small notebook and said, "So that's 2 miso soups and water." He tore off the page and gave it to the chef, then slid 2 cups of water over to them and said, "If you need anything else, just give me a ring." He put a bronze bell on the table, bowed, and left. There was silence between them. Temari started frantically looking for everything she had practiced, but it kept getting away from her. "So, how was your day?" she asked. Naruto started to wonder where she was going already. "It was great. I got a lot of work done today," he said, leaning his elbow on the counter and looking at her. She did the same as he did and leaned forward. "Like what?" she asked. "I've sent some seals to villages with Jinchuriki in case anyone tries to kidnap them." I've finally finished selling the land in Fire Country that I inherited from my parents, and the construction of the Chunin exams arena here is going well. These weren't exactly secret projects, and Tamari was related to Gaara, the Cage, so she would know about the threat of the masked man in the upcoming battle. Suna, Konoha, and Kiri reaffirmed that they were Naruto's allies and vowed to help him when the war started. The other 6 small villages he was allied with gave him the answer he expected. Yes, since Naruto himself wouldn't hesitate to help them as well. Kumogakure was still doubtful about the alliance with Wave and was mostly looking for signs of trickery. Naruto was supposed to visit the Raikage at Kumo in about 2 months, which was almost 4 months before the battle was supposed to start. That's great. She told the waitress who had dropped their food. Your students in Konoha are going to take the Chunin exams. Hi, they're probably ready for a raise. Yes, I went with Sasuke-sensei on a mission to raid a slave trafficking ring in the deserts near Suna. He was unstoppable, and I didn't know you could teach so well, Tamari said. Sasuke and Naruto's other 2 Konoha students had been training at Wave 3 times a week. They usually came with the rest of her team or, in Yakumo's case, a few Kurama guards. Sasuke had made a lot of progress in his training with the blonde leader. He had been trying to become a shinobi who was good at sneaking up on people and killing them. Weight seals had been put on him, and limiting seals had been put on his arms, so that the boy would have to really focus on his jutsu if he wanted to use it. Since it was known that the Uchiha were good at ninjutsu, he told Sasuke to learn every C-rank 4 jutsu he could find and boost it with his changed cursed seal, which he was still training with. This also reminded Naruto that Tsunade had taken Sakura Haruno, Sasuke's female teammate, as an apprentice. This was a kind of unfair competition between Naruto and the Senju when it came to training students, since Deku had told Naruto about Sakura's progress during their mission to get Gaara back. Sai had also caught the eye of an Anbu captain named Tenzo, and he was also getting extra lessons. Naruto smiled at the girl and said, "It's one thing to teach and another to learn. Sasuke is just a good student." He took a bite of his bean soup. Then he remembered when Neji had found him in his special place so that he could ask for something. Flashback. Konohagakure. Several days after the team outing. Naruto was in his favorite spot, sitting in his wheelchair in front of a painting set that was set up so it was easy for him to reach. He had a palette in his left hand and a paintbrush in his right. Yakumo was standing next to him with her own painting set. They were both drawing a tree 15 paces in front of them in a slow way. The 10-year-old girl stood stiffly, and Naruto looked at her out of the corner of his eye. "Is there something bothering you, Yakumo?" he asked as he went back to painting the tree. "I'll tell you after training, sensei." "Why not right now?" She was about to say something when Naruto put a hand on her shoulder. He was now standing next to her. "Does it have to do with graduating from the academy early?" he asked. The girl was so shocked that she dropped her paintbrush and asked him sharply, "How did you know?" Naruto gave her a wink and a pat on the back. "Have you forgotten? I was signed up as one of your next of kin. You're the only main branch member of your clan left, and everyone knows I'm your teacher. Does that bother you?" She quickly shook her head and put her hands to her chest. With tears in her eyes, she looked up at him and said, "No, I'm glad." "So. Do you agree?" He put his hand on her shoulder and smiled at her. "Is that what you want? Is anyone pressuring you?" "No, sensei, I've learned more from you in a week than I did in a month over there. My taijutsu is passable, my ninjutsu is good, and my genjutsu is okay." "You're underestimating yourself, kid. Your taijutsu is very good for someone with your background and health, your ninjutsu is getting better, and your genjutsu is almost impossible to beat." "Thank you, sensei," she said quickly after bowing. He ruffled her hair and said, "I was just being honest. We can talk about it more later, because we have a guest." She bowed her head and gave a slight nod. When Naruto saw Neji, he walked quickly out of the bushes and crossed his arms tightly. "I came to talk to you, Naruto-san," he said, quickly pointing with his Byakugan eyes at the Kurama princess with brown hair. "Can you meet me back here in 30 minutes, Yakumo?" "Hi, Naruto-sensei," she bowed again, and she was about to pack up her painting set when Naruto waved for her to leave. "We still have things to talk about," he winked at her. She blushed a little and ran past Neji into the bushes and out into the training ground in front of his special place. "What do you want to talk about, Neji-san?" The Hyuga branch member hesitated, frowned deeply, and looked to his right until he opened his mouth and muttered, "Can you help me get this off?" He untied his hitate to show the level 9.5 seal master the ugly caged bird seal. Naruto walked up to him, and when he didn't have to ask, he traced the seal with his pointer finger and asked, "Well? Can you?" Naruto took a step back and crossed his arms. "I can. I think that's the famous Hyuga caged bird seal. It's an old, unused version of the prisoner seal that I'm surprised is still around. Any level 9 or 10 seal master will be able to break it easily, much easier than the prisoner seals used today. Then, please." Naruto shrugged and held back a small wince. "That is a clan-run seal. Even though I'm not a shinobi, I'm still a member of this village. Technically, I'm required by law not to get involved in clan business. It's written in Konoha's founding charter." Neji took the news well. He clenched his fists tightly but kept his face calm. "You haven't cared about rules before, so why start now?" Naruto looked at the older boy for a minute before he said, "There are some things I can't do. That seal has a tracking seal on it, so as soon as I take it off, your clan head would be notified." Neji glared at him and said, "Then you're useless to me." The blonde seal master raised an eyebrow and said, "Seals can't do everything, you know." Neji stopped in his tracks but didn't turn around. "Like seals can't give me my leg back forever," he said. "You can already walk. That's what most of you think. I can walk, no big deal. But the seal that helps me walk is powered by my own strength, my chakra. If I'm on my feet for too long, it would start draining my life force." Neji didn't know what to say, so he said, "But every seal has a loophole, or a way to get around it." Is there a way around the caged bird seal?" asked the Hyuga prodigy. Naruto actually scoffed, "Of course there is. That seal is pretty much the second version of the prisoner seal, which was created many years ago. The standard prisoner seal used in Konoha as the seventh version." The Hyuga's eyes widened a little at the implication. "It showed just how old and primitive the caged bird seal was, but I will reaffirm what I have said. Anyone below level 9 wouldn't be able to break it because it needs a certain level of patience to understand and act on what the person to understand. Hell, the standard storage seal used these days is the 13th version. Problem is that the Uzumaki clan were usually in charge of updating various seals and, they were wiped out. So that means that the last time a seal was updated it was over 20 maybe 30 years ago, much overdue if you ask me. But I'm getting sidetracked. It was a habit of his whenever he spoke about Fuinjutsu. Just like every seal on this planet has a counter seal, every seal has an alter seal. Just like I can alter the storage seal to make the infinity storage seal, or I can alter the trap seal to make the light or strong contact trap seal. It's all about looking at the bigger picture and knowing exactly what you want. There was much more to Fuinjutsu than Neji would admit he appreciated, who would have thought that seals, once upon a time, were being updated. He walked up to Neji and tapped him on the shoulder. "Since that seal on your forehead is so old, it can be changed. But first, I need you to tell me a few things." The older boy turned around, and the blonde pointed to a plain wooden chair that he had unsealed from his wrist. Neji sat down slowly, and Naruto went back to his wheelchair. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Why do you want to take it off?" For 5 minutes, the boy didn't answer, so Naruto just sat forward and kept painting. "You said it yourself, it's a prisoner seal. I feel trapped, and it's making it hard for me to focus," Neji finally said. "And your perception," Naruto said from behind his painting. "What? It's the seal, right?" he asked with a bit of sarcasm, "since you always make Hinata mad when you see her, and for no good reason." She is weak," he said slowly, unsure of what he had just said. "I've been training Hinata for months, Neji-san. I know you've seen her fight with her sister Hanabi. She doesn't seem so weak anymore, does she?" It was true that Neji's shoulders sagged in defeat. During the Sound Sand invasion, when he was running with his team to help fight the invaders, his Byakugan saw a whirlwind of blood and gore blow past them. Hinata did it, and she couldn't be stopped. She would walk by a perfectly healthy Chunin invader, and when she came back to look at them, their heads would be caved in or a big piece of their chest would be cut out over their heart. Lee was still in the hospital at the time, and Guy was busy protecting the walls on the other side of the village. Neji shook his head, lowered his head a little, and his eyes drooped. "No," he said, "Hinata is strong." After saying this, he clenched his fists. Hinata might be stronger than him now. How the hell was Naruto going to teach her? The Kurama princess was at the top of her class in the academy, and so was Yakumo. They were supposed to be people who were always going to be weak. It's that. He stopped. Naruto stopped painting and looked around at him. You don't need to tell me if it's too personal, Neji-san, he said. Neji shook his head slightly and blinked away the thin layer of tears on his eyes. No, I need to get this out. Naruto furrowed his eyebrows and dropped his paintbrush, motioning for Neji to continue. It's that, 9 years ago a Kumo shinobi kidnapped her from her bedroom and her father killed the person. My Two-san sacrificed himself so that her Two-san could survive. It was because he was a branch member and his life was unimportant to main branch member. Neji shrugged and nodded slightly. So you chose to blame her for your father's death because you couldn't anger her father or Kumogakure. What if I told you that it wasn't a Kumo shinobi who took Hinata? I think that's crazy. Someone even found a Kumo Hitate. Am I right in saying that the body burned up on its own, so they didn't find it? Neji tried to hide how shocked he was, but his eyes still got a little wider. Two-san told me that's what Hiyashi-sama saw, he said. After the body caught fire, another body was opened. The thing about those kinds of things is that some things are out of our control and some things you think make sense don't make the slightest bit of sense. For example, I once thought that if I could make an explosive tag, I would be invincible, but I was wrong. I blamed my inability to walk and my lack of confidence instead of the fact that you can't use bombs to defend yourself. So, what does my situation mean in the big picture? That there are things you can't control and things you can reach. You might not notice this, but our elders hide a lot of things from us for our own good. So, you're saying that my Two-san lied to me to hide what was really going on? Naruto nodded and said, yes, for a while. You were much too young to go on a wild hunt for the truth about what happened when Hinata was taken. Oh, the boy's shoulder sagged. Did Hinata-sama ever tell you what happened that night? Naruto nodded again. Yes, she did. She even saw her father kill the man. She says the person who took her wore a white mask, which he took off when Hiyashi-sama came, and that before he died, he dropped a Kumo forehead protector. The Hyuga clan head was allowed to know some of the inner workings of Konoha, so Hiyashi would have known something was wrong. Mole had talked about a mission where a Kumo delegate was killed in his room in the Hyuga main clan house. His body was kept hidden until the root shinobi was killed. What do you think I should do? Where should I go from here? Since his father had died, all he knew was to insult Hinata and show her every day that she was less important than him. It was what kept him going. That's up to you, Neji-san. The Hyuga prodigy thought for most of his life that his father died instead of Hinata's because it was fate, since his father was a branch member and their lives were expendable, which was partly true. Naruto, on the other hand, was telling him that his father wasn't killed because the clan was split up. Naruto stopped him in the middle of his thought. I can remove the limiter, which will make it easier for you to do any jutsu. He had given Neji time to answer, but he still hadn't heard back. Flashback end. Naruto put his head on his hand and listened to what Temari was saying. She was talking about a meeting she had with Kisame while on a mission to Kiriagakure with Mole, her dark team, and a few sand Anbu. They saw Kisame, but they were too slow to catch up to him. Naruto's head snapped up when he felt a sharp pinch on his arm, and the Sand Princess stopped talking and said, "What the F? Naruto-sama, is there something wrong?" The blonde seal master quickly took some cash out of his pocket and paid for both of their meals. He grabbed her by the arm and ran out of the restaurant with her, and she quickly got back on her feet and followed him. As he ran to the library, his eyes got a little wider. He didn't answer the librarian when he greeted him, but instead rushed up the stairs to the top floor. On the top floor, there was a thick iron door with a seal that looked like a hypnotic spiral. Naruto rubbed his thumb over it, put his hand in the middle where the spirals met, and turned it in the direction of the spiral. There was a soft click, and the door swung open to reveal Toby pulling a seal from the seat section of the library. The man in the red mask just stood there and didn't say anything. "Amaterasu," he said just before he was sucked into a vortex, "time is running out, Naruto." "Shit," Naruto said as the black flames moved towards them, burning the seals they passed to a crisp. When the flames reached Naruto, he spread his arms out and crossed his forearms, standing in front of the stunned San Kanochi. His arm guards covered his arms as they melted out of their storage seals. The blonde girl was amazed as the unstoppable black flames hit Naruto's arms and were quickly sucked into a sky-blue water whirlpool. The young seal master didn't waste any time running to where the Uchiha had taken a seal from. As he rubbed his eyes and said a quiet curse, Temari raised her eyebrows. He took my chakra high seal, he whispered as he looked around the half-burned room, which was filled with absorption and suppression seals that kept the Amaterasu flames from destroying the whole building. When she still looked confused, he told her more. The seal mole gives her more power. The one that gives her pink fire? She asked slowly, afraid of the answer. Her heart sank when the blonde boy said yes, and she quietly cursed, what about all the destroyed seals? I can get new ones anytime, he told her as he led her out of the super secure S-rank jutsu room. I have to worry about what other seals he took. The room was protected by what the level 9 Fuinjutsu scroll called the Tri-Security Seal, which not only checked for his blood, but also scanned his fingerprint in the exact way he would turn the spiral seal. There was no way to break it, since all of these things had to be done at the same time, but the Uchiha proved him wrong when Tobi simply Kamui teleported into the room. He, Mole, Frog, and Haku were the only ones who entered. Daku didn't need to enter because he knew everything in the S-rank section because he wrote it. Before he went down the stairs, he locked the door and listened for the soft click. What are you going to do now, Naruto-sama? He looked at her out of the corner of his eye and said, I'm going to tell my fellow soldiers about this. No civilian should know about it. She nodded, said, understood. I have to start those classes right away. Q, what do you think? Maybe putting a Sharingan destruction seal and a chakra-controlled destruction seal in every important room. Great idea, but I don't think he'll come back, but I'm known for being too careful. What's up with Mole's group? Their reports say that the borders are too well protected. Maybe I should drop a bomb on sound. Kurama actually laughed when the boys said, this may seem out of character, but hold your horses. Aren't you all about causing as little harm as possible for as much gain as possible? You're right, but the fact is that this Madara guy could use the battle to kidnap Jinchuriki, Gaara said. 6 Jinchuriki, including him, were already counted, but only 2 of them, the 8 and 2 tails, didn't have the dual destruction seals, Sharingan and chakra control, on their bodies, but based on their reputations and bingo book entries, they were more than capable of taking care of themselves. Gaara was also Utakata, who held the 6 tails, was a strong ninja in his own right. Even at his worst, not many people could beat him. He could take care of himself. We can continue our dinner later, Tamari, he said. There weren't many people outside except for 2 Hoshi policewomen who patrolled the streets, which were lit up by bright streetlights. His senses told him that his dark shinobi was speeding around in the dark. He smiled at the sharp salutes the policewomen gave him and walked back to his office after making sure the Sand Princess was safe in her rented flat. As a leader about to go into a life or death battle with other hidden villages, it was important to make sure that neither the civilians nor the shinobi didn't go crazy. So, ever since he got back from Amigakure, Naruto has made sure to subtly show the citizens and visitors of Wave how strong his dark and police force are. He does this to show them that no matter what comes their way, they are ready to stop it before any lives are lost. He did this by having more police walk the streets during the day at different spots so that crime was at an all-time low, and by having the Black Ops briefly show up during the day when they had to report their mission to him or when they wanted to leave the village. The police and Black Ops had their own training grounds that kept the public from seeing them, but the average ninja, Genin, Chunin, Tokubetsu Junin, and Junin, didn't have that luxury. From 1 to 57, the training grounds were spread out over a large area in Outer Wave. Even though some of these training grounds were more private than others, anyone could watch if they wanted to. It was a kind of internal show of strength that gave the people of Wave's security peace of mind and made sure they didn't get scared. His young hunter ninja corps, led by the Demon Brothers, was in charge of patrolling the borders with Chunin and collecting bounties. However, they needed permission from Mole or Daku before they could go after missing A to S rank ninjas from allied villages. They were also to keep an eye on merchants who were on the move. This group of hunter ninja told Daku, who then told Naruto, that there was more activity coming from their borders, where Sound and Rock Shinobi were just watching Wave. Even though the hunter ninja stopped a hijacking, the shinobi ran away before a fight could start. Room 10. The school. Inner Wave. Country music. A short-haired woman with brown hair walked into the class wearing black shinobi pants and a red short-sleeved shirt under a blue Wave Junin flak jacket. When they saw the thin scar that ran from under her left eye to her chin, they were quiet. It was a battle scar from when she fought Itachi Uchiha. Her brown eyes lit up slightly when she saw Nariko, one of Naruto's genin, among the 30 people in the classroom. Most of the people there were academy students and genin, either from the Wave clan or the Hoshi clan. Even though Nariko was being trained by Naruto himself, he still wanted to go to the Fuinjutsu class that Rat had asked to be set up. When she smiled a little at him, he got red in the face. She walked to the front of the class and sat down at the desk. Good morning, students. My name is M, and I will be your level 1 to level 4 Fuinjutsu teacher. The class shouted, Good morning, M-sensei. They were all excited to learn about the type of jutsu that their teacher was an expert in. Leader Sama has entrusted me to lay the basic foundations of Fuinjutsu on anyone willing to learn it, which just so happens to be you lot. Leader Sama has a dream of seeing a SEAL Corps in his ninja force, just like there is a Hunter Ninja Corps and Medic Ninja Corps. He has seen that this dream is possible, and he also sees that each and every person in this class, as well as every person in the entire country, has the potential to master Fuinjutsu. The key to mastering Fuinjutsu though is patience. She looked over the students to make sure her words had sunk in before she continued. We are all aware that Naruto-sama is a level 9.5 SEAL master, yes? They nodded in agreement, but do you know how much patience it took for him to reach the stage he is currently in? How much patience it took for him to fully master contact trap seals? Haven't you ever wondered why Naruto-sama has never exploded in a fit of rage or even gotten frustrated, that is without it being caused by people trying to destroy Wave? She caught a few of the Wave-born and Hoshi Genin nod their heads to what she had asked, too, wondering just what their leader had gone through to acquire so much patience. All of the Genin had met Naruto in some way, whether it was when they were turning in mission reports or when he was walking through the training grounds on the weekend or when he was training his Genin. Every time they saw him, he didn't show his famously bad temper when he was met with something he didn't like. Instead, he would tell the person to do better in a firm way. Fuinjutsu isn't an art one can just open a scroll and master within a day or merely train your chakra control to learn to master it, similar to Genjutsu. Rather, you have to be ready to meet disappointment and injury. Your first seal may be flawless, but what's to say your second seal would be the same, or even your third seal? Naruto-sama has created a lot of seals, but do you know how many times he has escaped death and permanent impairment when the seal combinations were incorrect? He told me and my Junin comrades during a meeting in his office that he had once broken all the bones in his arms after he had first attempted to create the infinity storage seal, then the second attempt he had a mild concussion. It was his 36th attempt that the seal was finally complete. Being stubborn is doing one thing over and over again whether it is wrong or not, but being patient is carefully going over what you have done and correcting it. If that is a failure, it is not about giving up and going to the next project but pushing through and being persistent about your passion. If Leader Sama had not been patient with his art, Wave would still be how it was under Gato. There would be no mass development in the other 5 villages allied to Wave. It was a small catalyst, patience, which brought all of this into being. And do any of you have any complaint about the results? They perked up and shook their heads negatively. Do you all see how patience is a key to mastering Fuinjutsu? Hi M-sensei. Good. You might all come upon roadblocks along the way and you may lose hope that you will remain the same, but there is nothing impossible about mastering sealing. She used Naruto as an example, again, since he was the closest example they had to a successful seal master and Fuinjutsu-based fighter. Besides Jiraiya, when you want to give up and drop your brushes for good, I want you to have something in mind. She stood up and placed her hands behind her back, her eyes roving over all of the students, who sat up attentively. If a boy who had resigned to not having a future or life could discover the use of Fuinjutsu and capitalize on it, then everyone can do it too. It wasn't an insult to Naruto, rather it was a gold star since he had set the lower limit for Fuinjutsu students and he was also the present highest limit. It was one of the reasons the ninja of Wave respected him. I've been told you have all brushed through Fuinjutsu and its meaning in the academy syllabus, am I correct? They nodded, good. Now after finding out about the numerous dangers and the equally numerous advantages in Fuinjutsu, who wants to leave? He raised her right hand for silence before the noise erupted. It won't be held against you if you chose not to study seal work anymore. You're free to leave. It was possible to be a seal master with minimum injuries from his work, but those were the seal masters that chose to follow after what had already been laid down, not what they wanted to create. M seemed to have underestimated how much the students wanted to learn about seals. After hearing about Naruto, they had all read about seals on their own, and they knew how dangerous they were. Even though there was a 30-minute wait, no student left class. M put her hands together and clapped. Well, that's good. Before I came here, Leader Sama told me he had a lot of faith in this class, that he was sure great minds and great discoveries would come from here. Is he wrong? They yelled, No, sensei. Are you going to give it your best shot? She asked. They shouted, Hi, sensei. Are you going to show the world that Fuinjutsu is still alive? Hi, sensei. They shouted again. She smiled widely and told them to be quiet. Then she leaned forward as if she wanted to tell them a secret, and they did the same. Naruto-sama wants to change the world with seals. He wants to make seals that can teleport people through the air or even to other villages. He has so many plans and ideas that it is overwhelming him, I can see it. He needs your help. When she said the last part, the other ninjas murmured, but M nodded, yes, he wants your help. Hi, sensei, they said, and their eyes were fiery. Good, now your first lesson is to know what Fuinjutsu is and all of the basic strokes by heart. I hope you all have the book, Fuinjutsu, Level 1 by Namikaze Minato-sama. They all nodded and brought out the book. The woman turned around, picked up a piece of chalk, and started writing on the board the many basic seal strokes. While doing this, the 14th training ground. Outer wave. Country music. Team Kakashi, Team Naruto, and Yakumo were all sitting under a tree and chatting while waiting for the wave leader. Kakashi was sitting on a tree branch and reading one of his many twisted books. Naruto's first 3 students went to wave to get training from their blonde sensei. Most of the time, their visits would interfere with the wave leader training his own students, but that wasn't always a bad thing. It gave the older students a chance to learn about the younger ones and the younger ones a chance to learn about the older ones. Usually, Sakura and Sai would train with their different teachers in Konoha, but it looked like they also wanted to come to wave. Hinata and Yakumo were telling Cam, Nariko, Sai, and Sakura about a time when Naruto was training in Konoha. The younger students' eyes grew wide as they listened. Did he force you to do that? Hinata agreed with her. Senbon balancing isn't as bad as it seems, they'll heal up soon. Yakumo nodded and pulled the bandages off her left hand to show the pine-like marks on her palm. It's all in your head. If you can picture yourself doing it, you'll be able to do it. Sensei hasn't told us about Senbon balancing, Nariko said. Yet, Yakumo piped up. Inari was sleeping on his back with his fingers interlaced, while Sasuke twisted a kunai in his fingers and turned on and off his Sharingan. When they heard slow footsteps coming towards them, they all looked up. It was Naruto, and he was in full combat gear. Sorry I'm late. Tsunami-san mixed up my clothes, and I couldn't wait for her to get them back in order, he said. He was wearing a long-sleeved back shirt with a thick blue stripe going down his shoulders to his free hands. He was also wearing a pair of black shinobi trousers that dark ninja usually wear on missions. His shuriken pouch was on his left thigh and his kunai pouch was on his right hip. He also wore black sandals, arm guards, and shin guards. A blue wave Junin flak jacket covered his chest, and a blue banded forehead protector was wrapped around his head. Even so, they could see that it didn't stop him from moving. He probably tried it on in the store before buying it. He tapped Inari with his toe, and the boy jerked away. When he saw it was Naruto, he jumped to his feet. I'll be teaching you guys how to. Anyo, Naruto-sensei. He paused and raised his eyebrows at Hinata. He hummed and signaled for her to speak. Well, we were thinking. We want a team spar against you, Sasuke said when the Hyuga princess hesitated. Yeah, me, Hinata and Sasuke against you, Yakumo said. Can I ask why? Asked Naruto. Hinata told him, as your first students, we just want to see how far we've come. Naruto looked at each of his older students for a minute, then turned to his younger students. He could tell that they really wanted to see him fight his older students, probably to see what his training could do as well as to see him fight. What are the rules? Asked the seal master, who nodded and rolled his wrists. Yakumo pumped her fist in the air, but Sasuke spoke up first. No trap seals. Contact traps or anything, he said. No sleeping chain and blue iron bubble, Hinata said next. No, Kyuubi, and we don't want you holding back, sensei, the female artist said as a conclusion. Naruto laughed at them and said, that's a lot you've taken away. I agree. He also wanted to see how this would end, so he told them, don't hold back. He walked back to the middle of the training ground and waved for them to come at him. Kakashi sat up straight and murmured, let's see how this ends, eh? He was also interested in seeing what Naruto could do against his students. Sakura and Sai nodded and turned their attention to the fight. Hinata said to the 2 people next to her, you know what to do. Hi, they barked, and Sasuke and the purple-haired heiress flew to Naruto. Yakumo stayed behind and took out a canvas and a paintbrush from a painting set. She started painting right away. Naruto laughed at their plan, which already impressed him, and they started fighting with their hands. He raised his left forearm as Hinata yelled out a war cry and her fist smashed against it, The attack reverberated through the seal-augmented black metal and escaped through Naruto's feet. Think like a lightning conductor. The ground broke apart violently under him, but he didn't retreat like expected. The blonde leaned away when Sasuke swiped at him with his own fist, using his left shin protector to meet the blow, and that was when he decided to enter the offensive. His pointer and middle fingers, which were laced with chakra, tried to block the blow, but the Uchiha, whose Sharingan was spinning wildly in his eyes, jumped away, and Hinata met the attack with her own laced fingers. Naruto's tree root seals lit up and held him in place as strong gusts of wind blew around him and Hinata. He spun on his left heel and used his right heel to kick the girl in the face. She turned into smoke when she hit the ground, and his sense seals told him to move to the right to avoid a pair of bandaged hands that were sticking out of the ground. Sasuke came up from behind him and punched him in the back. His tree root seals held him in place, and he used the momentum of the surprise attack to swing his right leg, which was now full of earth, around and hit Sasuke in the side. Hinata started hitting him with Juken attacks, so he pulled a kunai from each sleeve to deflect them. His eyes lit up when he saw a small hole in her form, but before he could take advantage of it, he was hit with hundreds of water drills. He burst into chakra smoke, which showed a piece of wood where he had been. Sasuke's eyebrow twitched in irritation as his two Tomo Sharingans tracked a paper shuriken. He bent down to avoid it, but a hand came out of the ground and grabbed his neck. The Uchiha's eyes widened in shock as his face hit the hard, unforgiving ground. Naruto jumped up from the ground, and Sasuke rolled away from him as an axe kick shook the ground. The Seal Master's style of taijutsu required him to know every possible attack so he could think of a way to defend and counter. With hundreds of fighting styles and millions of possible attacks, it wasn't easy to do, but it was fairly easy to do against his students, since he had taught them most of what they knew, including the jutsu they were using. Hinata started doing a short set of hand seals quickly. When she got to Earth Release, Mud Balls, she took a deep breath and started spitting mud balls at her teacher. The balls of mud bounced off Naruto's shield as it came into view. He turned away from the last few and muttered his own jutsu. Water Release. Cold tidal wave, he said, and a thick jet of water snaked out of his mouth and towards the Hyuga girl. She jumped over the attack, but it stubbornly followed her. Naruto stopped the attack to avoid the kunai swipe Sasuke gave him. He flipped backwards, and when his eyes were level, he slapped his left hand on the ground. The chakra seal beam lit up in an ominous way, and a pillar of earth rose from the ground like a snake with a drill in its mouth. The earth attack screamed down at Sasuke, but Hinata used him as a springboard. She gritted her teeth as chakra covered her whole fist, and she punched the attack. Around them, dust started to fly up, so Naruto used a wind jutsu to blow it away. He saw that he was now by himself, with only Team 7 and Kakashi watching from the sidelines. His ears twitched for any sound, but his sensory seals were all over the place, telling him that his 3 students were there, but not all at the same time. So you finally decided to join, Yakumo, he said and slapped his palms together. A loud click echoed around the training ground. Kai. The air broke apart to show Hinata punching him in the stomach. All the air in his lungs blew out, and he felt Sasuke's hard heel hit his back. Yakumo tied it all together by holding her paintbrush against his neck, where a sharp blade glinted in the light. You lose, sensei, she said with a proud grin. Have I? Asked the blonde, whose face was on the ground. As if on cue, the ground shook and 5 stone arms came out of the ground. That's when they saw that his chakra beam seal was still glowing in an ominous way. 2 of the fists hit Sasuke right in the chin, and 2 of them hit Hinata on her unprotected belly. The last one grabbed Yakumo by the neck and lifted her off the ground. Naruto got back on his feet but made sure his left palm was still on the ground. He used his other hand to dust off his shoulder before bringing Yakumo down and poking the nerve cluster on her neck, which knocked her out. He stood back up and threw his right hand at Sasuke, who was still trying to get his legs steady after the earth-shattering blows. 3 snake ropes came out of his wrist and Speed tied the boy up. He signaled for them to come back and poked the nerve cluster again, knocking the boy out. He looked behind him and snapped his fingers to make the ropes come together around Hinata. The girl poked and prodded the 3 half-sentient ropes while her Byakugan was on fire. She had her arms crossed when Naruto suddenly appeared in front of her and hit her arms with his knee. Everything happened slowly as he flipped behind her and burst into chakra smoke at the same time. A clone. Before she could drop her weight seals, a snake rope wrapped around her leg, and the others took this chance to wrap around her and squeeze the air out of her. When Naruto came out from behind her and pushed her, she fell back like a tree. He turned his head to the side and held a kunai under her chin as he said nothing. "I win," he said with a slight frown. "You should have dropped your weights right away." He sent a single snake rope to get Sasuke and Yakumo, poking their necks again to wake them up. "You should have used your cursed seal and your beast chakra." He scratched his chin, and the three of them started sweating on their foreheads. "Either you three underestimated me or—" "Sensei, we're sorry," screamed the Kurama princess as her eyes filled with tears. "You were overconfident," he finished as if he hadn't been interrupted. "I was sure I had squashed that out of you three." Yakumo kept crying and apologizing. "Training has tripled for all of you," he said, even to his own genin team. "Let's start with bucket balancing on beds of senbon." He grinned at them menacingly, and the 6 students gulped. Everyone gulped. Naruto looked at himself in the mirror and ran his hand through his wild blonde hair. He looked at the seal tattoos all over his body that went down his arms and ended on his fingers. He tried not to yawn and took the woman in his room's black shirt with blue stripes going down the arms. "Tsunami-san, I promise you that Inari would be perfectly safe with us," Naruto said as he rolled his shoulders and put on the Junin flak jacket. He yawned again and scratched his cheek. He looked in the mirror at the mother's sad face and tried to give her an understanding smile. As usual, the woman had come to his room an hour before dawn with clean clothes for him to wear. She had used this time to ask Naruto to leave Inari out of the mission they were about to go on. "You have to understand, Naruto-sama, that Inari-kun is my son. He's my only son," she said with dull eyes and her hands clasped behind her back. Naruto raised his eyebrows. "He wouldn't be going alone," he said. He put on his kunai and shuriken holsters and stepped into his shinobi sandals, strapping them on and making sure they were secure before he started making his bed. Tsunami muttered, "I can handle it," as she was about to put the pile of clothes she was carrying on the desk to make the bed. Naruto stopped her. Naruto slowly stood up and turned his head to the side before saying, "Tsunami-san, please take a seat." He walked up to the woman and took the pile of laundry from her hands, putting it on his messy bed. The woman nodded slightly and sat on the edge of the bed, watching as Naruto looked through his closet and pulled out a rucksack that still had the store tag on it. The blonde used his teeth to pull the tag off. He then started to put things in the bag that she thought were for ninjas, like extra clothes, 2 blankets, weapons, ration bars, scrolls, some notes and pencils, and some other things she couldn't keep track of. Inari is a growing boy. He has so much potential as a shinobi, and so far his development is only limited by staying in wave, he said. But Naruto-sama. He once told me that one of his dreams was to make his father proud, Naruto said. Tizuna-san told me that Kaiza-san fought for wave and died for wave. He is by all definitions a shinobi and a stellar one, even though he didn't have formal training. He was loyal to a cause until the end, and Inari wants to be like him. When I was growing up, I never had a reliable parent figure, so please forgive me if I can't fully understand you, but I do know where you're coming from. She asked, "You do?" He nodded and sat down beside her. "I have 3 students in Konoha, much longer than I have had students in Wave. That means that there are 3 people that look up to me for proper guidance, and it is this guidance that they make use of on missions. Every time I watch or they tell me they're leaving for a mission, I always worry that what I've taught them wasn't good enough to make a difference. I worry that they would die on a mission or get severely wounded just because I might have not instructed them properly. Even though I'm yet to hear that, I can't help but worry. Do you understand what I'm saying?" She looked into his deep blue eyes before she looked down to her hands and nodded. "Inari is an exceptional genin, even though his academy results don't show that. Jiraiya of the Sannin was a class clown, but now look at him. He needs space to grow, and you are doing a wonderful job raising him, but he needs a little more freedom." He smiled lightly and pat her shoulder once as she nodded. "I get it. Please, Naruto-sama, bring my boy back to me alive. I promise, and he'll be with me, my guards, Yumi Dono, and her guards, as well as his team. That's 9 high-ranking shinobi, 2 genin, and Inari, for a total of 3. Now that I think about it, it seemed like too much for a simple diplomatic mission to Kumo, but Yumi insisted on going to Hidden Lightning as well. His personal guards were the most powerful dark shinobi of their generation: Baboon, Raven, Eagle, and Leopard. Mole was the leader of the group. Baboon and Leopard were twins who were both short-range experts. One used a bow staff and the other used trench knives. They were hand-to-hand experts. Raven was a master of genjutsu who could use rank techniques that were hard to break. He was also the deputy captain. Eagle was a long-range fighter who was good at recon and also knew a lot about ninjutsu. This didn't mean they didn't have other skills. They were all experts at sneaking around, keeping quiet, killing people, and spying. The blonde leader stood up and shrugged his rucksack. "You can go and wave him off if you want," he said. "No, he'll think I'm embarrassing him." "No, you need it and he needs it, trust me," Naruto laughed. "Hi, Naruto-sama." She went after him and made sure the door was shut before they walked down the stairs. Naruto started to put his forehead guard on his right arm while greeting the servants who were opening the windows and dusting the chairs. He opened the door, and they walked silently through the waking streets to the outer wave. The gatekeepers there stood up, and Naruto gave a casual two-finger salute as the invisible Fuin Genjutsu bubble let him leave because it knew him from his tattoo and chakra. It took about half an hour to walk to the port. He could see his genin team sitting on a bench and watching the sailors hurrying around to get the ship ready. He smiled at them. They stood up straight and said, "Morning, sensei." Their own backpacks were at their feet. "Morning," he said, looking around. "Has Yumi Dono arrived yet?" "I'm right behind you, Naruto Dono," he said, looking over his shoulder. This let Tsunami worry about her son while he talked to the leader of the Hidden Chill. She was wearing different clothes, probably her own combat uniform. She wore a white shirt with no sleeves that reached to the middle of her thigh and dark blue shorts with white knee socks. A white scarf was wrapped around her neck, and she wore long, fingerless gloves that stopped just above her elbows. Her shoulder-length blonde hair was in a loose bun held together by two chopsticks, and the cold morning wind blowing through wave had made her pale cheeks red. She was used to going through worse, but there were some things her body just couldn't hide. He asked, "How was your hotel room, Yumi Dono?" "Good. Though just Yumi is fine, there's no need for formalities between us." "Only between us," Naruto said with a small smile on his lips and a nod. "In the same way, it's never easy to be reminded all the time that I'm responsible for hundreds of lives." The young woman laughed and looked over his shoulder at his rucksack. "I see you decided not to seal your things," she said, "not exactly, but close enough. This is as much a learning mission for my students as it is a diplomatic mission for us," the captain of the ship said as he walked up to him and offered to take his bag. "It's fine, I can carry it myself." "After you, Yumi," he said as he led the blonde woman up the boardwalk and into the ship. Naruto had ordered the ship they were in to be built so it could take tourists to Wave. However, there were now 2 more ships that could do that job, so he was able to use the ship to show his students the wider world and get them as close as possible to Lightning Country, which was at the border of Hidden Marsh in Swamp Country. From there, they would walk to their destination. The ship was pretty big, and it could easily hold and feed 50 to 80 people. Each person had their own room, depending on whether they were in a family or paid extra for their own room. There was a cafeteria, a wide deck with binoculars for the passengers, and dozens of servants rushing to meet their needs. Now, there were only half a dozen servants and a dozen sailors just to keep the ship running. Naruto had told them to leave most of the security to him and his friends. The young leader let out a quiet sigh and closed his eyes as he leaned on the ship's railing and enjoyed the fresh breeze from the wide ocean. Yumi looked at him curiously but left the boy to his thoughts. Nariko and Cam were running around the ship, diving down the stairs, and going inside after Dark Operative Leopard told them to follow him to their rooms. Mole was busy with the other 3, giving them their jobs and trying to set up the night and day patrol rotation with the captain of the Chill Anbu operatives. Daku rushed onto the ship next to Naruto. Yumi didn't react much, but Naruto kept his eyes closed. The dark shadow fell on his right knee and waited for Naruto to acknowledge him. Some of the other Black Ops agents watched as the Dark Commander waited for the wave leader to talk to him. Naruto took a small step back from the railing and stood up straight. He looked down at his loyal servant with his blue eyes. "Don't worry, Daku," the seal creature said and jumped to its feet. Daku asked Naruto-sama, "Are you sure you don't want me to come along?" "Wave still needs someone to protect it while I'm gone. Someone my shinobi can listen to in my place," the leader said simply. "Besides, we're safe enough." He smiled lightly and waved at the few Wave residents who were awake and had heard that their leader was going on a trip. Most of them were Chunin who were on border patrol for the weekend fish sellers who usually got up early. Daku hummed to himself and nodded. "As long as you're sure, Naruto-sama," he said. He was about to jump off the boat, but Naruto grabbed his left forearm and the dark shadow leaned in to hear what the blonde had to say. "I trust you not to let me down, Daku. I have a list of things I want done before the next battle." Make sure it gets done, he whispered, and Deku could tell from the way Naruto's usually warm blue eyes hardened that whatever it was not to be taken lightly. Naruto let go of Daku's arm, and Deku went to the leader's office after giving Naruto a nod of approval. Naruto looked at Yumi and was confused when she just stood there and stared at him, trying to figure out what had just happened. The blonde guy shook his head and led the woman downstairs to the room that was set aside for her. Before Mole snapped her fingers and sent them to their posts, the Dark Agents and Chill Anbu looked at each other with questions. The wave leader told the captain to set sail, and they began their slow but careful trip to the land of swamps, where they would get off the boat and walk to the land of lightning. Naruto told his students to meet him at the deck right away after putting his bag in his room. The boy was sitting on the railing with his back to where they were going, and his 3 students were sitting with their legs crossed in front of him. They waited for him to start their first lesson, and he did. When you travel to a place you've only heard rumors and stories about, you need to be ready for the unexpected. Common sense would tell you that you should know as much as possible about where you're going before you get there, especially if you're a shinobi going on a mission. But, Sensei, Nariko asked as he hesitantly raised his hand. Wouldn't it be bad if an ally led us into a trap? Naruto nodded for him to go on. Yes, it is, but you have to remember that every country, big or small, values strength. If they think they can take our strength, they most likely will. Cam spoke up when Naruto asked her to. What if the allied villages have a long history together and a strong bond? Naruto smiled and opened his arms. Then you have nothing to worry about. Take the Minor Six Alliance. We all have bad histories and bad reputations, so we allied because no one else wanted to see how we have changed. As long as we respect the sovereignty of each ally and do what we agreed to in our alliance agreement, we won't have any problems. Because we trust them, Naruto-sensei, Inari said before Cam could say anything. Exactly, but also because we respect them. It all comes down to mutual benefit. The 3 nodded, and Yumi, who was sitting on a deck chair a little bit away from them but still facing them, also nodded in agreement. Back to knowing your destination before you go there. I can't boast that I've been all over the continent, but I can boast that I'm fairly well traveled, despite my age, he added to himself. He didn't try to hide his smile when the genin's eyes got all squinty when he read the title. It's actually really interesting, he said. Nariko was having trouble carrying her own book, so how in the world was Naruto able to carry all 3 at once? But sensei. Inari groaned, but his teacher stopped him with a sharply raised eyebrow. Fine. Naruto laughed and said, don't look so sad, guys. How about this? If you read about Lightning Country and only Lightning Country, I'll teach you a trick to even out your chakra control. They moaned even louder, but this didn't change the blonde boy's mood as he sent them away. As the genin ran to the deck chairs, Yumi walked up to Naruto and leaned against the railing next to him. I don't envy them, she said quickly. What? She asked the boy quickly, what will you do to pass the time? He raised his eyebrows at her and then shrugged. I was about to draw the horizon, but... He looked at her suspiciously. I think you think it's my job to keep you entertained. She actually nodded when he said this. You do know that I didn't even ask you to come with us, right? I just wanted to see how convincing you were in person, since you were the only one who got the minor country, village alliance to join with Konoha, Suna, Aim, and Kiri. Naruto turned around and put his forearms on the railings, leaning forward, and she did the same. Zabuza, Haku, and Deku helped me get the last alliance, he muttered. She tapped him on the shoulder and said, but you got the first 3 right? He nodded. Konoha was just a convenience so Fire Country wouldn't come after me, and Aim was because they have some of the strongest ninjas on the planet. He thought of Nagato and Pain. He had heard that the village was still being put back together and that Nagato was slowly getting better. The Rain Ninjas were told that Wave, their first ally in years and led by the blonde boy who saved them from being crushed by rocks, needed their help in the coming battle. Wave was their first ally in years. They were looking forward to doing it, mostly because they wanted to pay back the favor. What's up with Suna? Naruto was quiet for a few seconds before he said, at first, it was because I turned down a marriage proposal so that bad feelings wouldn't grow between us. Then, it was because Suna was more reliable with Gaara as leader. He's a nice kid, the 13-year-old boy agreed. He doesn't need to say it, but he looks up to you. Naruto looked at her in surprise, and she quickly nodded, yes, when he came to Wave, he was either with you or in his hotel room, probably sleeping. Gaara is a good leader. She pursed her lips and asked, you mentioned a marriage proposal. Was it between you and... He waited for her to say more, and when she did, she said, him. Before he fell into the water, the boy choked and grabbed the railing with both hands. What the F? She quietly giggled into her hands, her pale cheeks red and her eyes filled with tears. No need to be ashamed, Naruto-kun, she teased, drawing out his name. He was able to straighten himself out. It wasn't with Gaara. She didn't believe him, especially after she gave him a playful punch to the arm. Then who would be interested enough to give you a formal marriage proposal? He looked at her with his eyes like they were on fire, but she didn't stop being proud until he said, Tamari, which was the name of the woman who had asked him to marry her. Is that why she spends most of her time in your country? She asked with a teasing smile. Is that why she frowns for a split second? He gave a shrug and said, maybe. I turned down the offer when I was asked. It's strange that she wants to be Suna's ambassador to Wave, but she's still a lot of fun to be around. He had accidentally gone on a few dates with her, thinking they were just eating together as friends, and he found that she had interesting stories about past missions. He said this without flinching. The older blonde asked, so? Are you going to marry her? He shrugged again and said, I don't plan to get married for a long time, if ever, but she's the first person I think of if I do. He looked at her out of the corner of his eye and asked, why are you interested in my love life? She chirped, no reason, and tapped his shoulder with hers. The next day, Naruto got his students together and asked them to talk about what they had read. He asked, why do most people in Kumo have lightning affinity chakra? Cam said, because they live at a high altitude, their chakra has changed. This was the best explanation the book could give, and she was happy inside as Naruto nodded. He kept asking them questions, and Cam answered the most and Inari answered the least, but that was enough to satisfy the cage-level wave leader. After a few rounds of questions, Naruto stopped to reward his students. Think of your chakra as a river flowing down to a waterfall. This waterfall is how your chakra spreads around your body and the river is the source. Some books say that the size of the chakra depends on the amount of control a person has, but that isn't always true. The Sandaime Hokage had perfect chakra control and he was ranked the third largest chakra well. The Shoden Izukage had 3 times as much chakra as me and he had perfect control of it. Mole, who was the one that was to stay around Naruto that day, mouth dropped open in shock. It was crazy to think that a man with a larger source of chakra had that much control, especially since Naruto had more chakra than everyone she knew. There are a lot more people I can name. Hatake Sakumo, Uchiha Fugaku, Namikaze Minato, Senju Tsunade, among many others. Although the size of the chakra capacity gives a small clue on how well the person is able to control it, it shouldn't be the only determinant, especially when you visualize the flow of the river, the source of your chakra, flowing easier instead of through a pin-sized hole. The first thing to keep in mind is patience. It won't magically come to you, but it will, and the last is practice. Inari crossed his arms in a hurry and asked, what's the trick, sensei? Naruto ignored the boy's impatience and said, it depends on the affinity, but since you all have water affinity and Cam has wind affinity, we can all do it together. He didn't say how he could use each nature transformation. He snapped his fingers and Leopard appeared behind them with a big bucket of water. He doused the genin with the water, soaking them to the bone. Naruto closed his eyes and smiled widely. The trick is called urgency, and you use your chakra to dry yourselves. He laughed at their outraged shrieks. The trick is to choose a path on your clothes to concentrate the flow of water off your clothes, he said, pointing to his wrist. And be quick about it, the temperatures are dropping. He reached to his right, and someone gave him a bucket of water. He dumped it on his head, and the water went all the way through his hair and clothes. He silently pointed at them and told them to watch. Their eyes grew wide as 3 small rivers of water crawled down his front and 2 down his back. The water slid down his trousers and gathered at his feet. This went on for 30 seconds until all of his clothes were dry. He was about to leave, but he said, don't wring your clothes and don't leave this place. Good luck. Nariko moaned, damn it, sensei, as a chill went through him. In hidden sound, someone walked through an empty passageway that led to one of the many hidden places in the leader's tower. The taller man, who was pale and had black hair, looked forward and asked, how's the project I gave you coming along, Kabuto-kun? Very well, Orochimaru-sama. Details, the pale man said, and Kabuto went through the months of research he had done on his own since the other 2 Sannin and Naruto beat them. The old man silently agreed with everything his assistant said until he asked, how many samples have you taken? It was really hard. I didn't ask about how hard it was, I asked how many samples you had, Orochimaru said in a low, threatening hiss. Now, give me a number. Kabuto coughed and muttered, 172. Orochimaru-sama. He waited for the reprimand with high shoulders and a low head, but when he didn't get one, he looked up at his master and was shocked by the bright gleam in the man's yellow, reptilian eyes. You did a good job, Kabuto-san. The glasses-wearing teenager's lips moved slightly as he tried to stop stuttering. Thank you, sir, he said. The Sannin didn't pay attention to the boy's answer and kept talking as if he hadn't been stopped. How long until you have 250 samples? I have a lot of different sources and suppliers in. Kabuto-kun, the man hissed again as he glared at the teen from the side of his eyes. How long? Just 1 month more. Perfect, just a month away from the day, they kept saying in silence as they walked down the long hallway. The younger scientist was the one who finally spoke up. Sir, the man hummed back, and then he started opening and closing the doors along the sides of the hallway. Each door held one of his many living experiments, and he kept track of their vital signs as they went through different tests. The Sannin laughed quietly as he closed the door and asked, how about Kimimaro-kun? Will he be ready to kill Naruto-kun? One of the experiments was a huge boy who was punching the wall very hard. The man stopped to scratch his chin before continuing to walk. It makes sense that an Uzumaki wouldn't be happy staying in one place, so I'm guessing that the boy is much stronger than the last time we saw him. He might even have new seals and jutsu, and he might also know how to fight now. Kami knew how many stories he had heard about Uzumaki being strong enough to destroy countries or control demons with their seals alone. Even though he agreed by nodding, Kabuto was a little bit doubtful about his master's plan. He had been all over the continent gathering DNA samples from dead shinobi and doing research on the impure world resurrection, jutsu, mostly looking for ways to make it better. This was different from the Sannin, who had been staying in sound so he could focus on improving the defenses and his other living experiments, like Kimimaro. As he moved around, he kept his ears open for news, and what he heard didn't look good for their plans. Naruto had joined forces with 3 major hidden villages and revived the Wave Country, as well as 5 other smaller villages. Wave was almost too strong when you added in the villages that were part of the other small alliance of villages. Though he would praise his master for seeing the small chance that Naruto was in fact well connected with powerful ninjas and countries by giving him the job of getting as many DNA samples from powerful ninjas who had died. He already had 100 A-ranked ninjas and a dozen S-ranked ninjas. This should be enough to match any odds that Naruto came up with. He was also told to look into ways to keep the ninjas alive as long as possible and give them the same power they had when they were alive. He went through the door that the Sannin opened last. They stopped and watched as Kimimaro shot 2 bone spikes at a dummy. The red dots on his left shoulder were glowing brighter than when he got the Uchiha and Senju DNA. When the spikes hit the dummy, the wooden object was sucked into a clear, spinning whirlpool. Itachi walked into the pastry shop on the edge of the red light district. As he did so, bells rang above his head. There were only 2 more buildings before the red light district was fully inside. The man couldn't move around as freely as he did when he was a true leaf ninja. Only the Anbu and the Junin knew he was in the village, and they were very suspicious of him, even after Tsunade told them why he had betrayed and killed his clan and whose orders he was following. He had to put himself under a normal henge and use his Sharingan to make it stronger. He also had to do something here because this was the only place he could do it. Henge described the S-rank man as a man in his late teens with white hair, red eyes, tan skin, and very plain features. He was wearing a black shirt with long sleeves, black trousers and blue boots. The ninja sighed and clenched his hands before he forced himself to look straight ahead and walk up to the counter of the bakery. The shop was empty, so it must have been a slow day. He sat down on a tall stool at the bar-style counter. A woman with black hair and bright red eyes came out of the back room door right in front of him less than a second later. She was perfect in every way. She had soft features and a bright smile that made the normally serious man's lips twitch up for a moment. The girl, who was also in her late teens, put her hands behind her back, got out a pad of paper and a pencil and dusted off her bright pink apron for the sprinkles. Hello, Shinobi-san. Welcome to Senpei Pastry and Confectionaries. My name is Mizumi. What can I get you? As she waited for him to answer, she kept her eyes closed so he couldn't see her red eyes. I don't remember telling you I was a ninja, Itachi said as he put his arms on the counter in a casual way. You have that super ninja thing going on, Anyone else would have felt it, she said with a bright smile that made her white teeth shine a little. I'm not a ninja. Yeah, you can't lie to me, she said, her eyes still closed, but he could tell she was still very aware of her surroundings. Now, what can I get you? He asked. Itachi was quiet for a few seconds and looked around to make sure no one was around, even the store owner. I need. He leaned forward and she did the same. A BB special cupcake. When she opened her eyes, the 3 Tomo Sharingans under her red contact lenses started spinning wildly. She threw away her paper pad, grabbed Itachi by the neck, and threw him through the backroom door behind her. He crashed through the strong wood, and she walked through the wreckage while water clone melted out of her side and locked the front door. Itachi coughed and laughed to himself as he turned over onto his stomach and saw her black sandal-covered feet. His Sharingan eyes, which were also covered by red contact lenses, slowly looked up, past the beautiful teen's purple and white dress, and right into her own red eyes. She reached down and grabbed him by the shirt, pulling him up easily. She raised her other fist to hit him in the face, but stopped when he started laughing. Who the hell are you? Itachi slowly put out both arms in a way that was meant to be calming. He stopped laughing and coughed gently into his fist. You don't know me? My Sharingan can't see through your genjutsu, he said with a quiet laugh. She shook him and asked, now, who the hell are you? He let his illusion fade away to show his real face. She dropped him quickly, and as she stumbled away in shock, he got back on his feet. Itachi-kun, he said. Before he looked at her and said, hi, the man was straightening out his shirt. As her back touched the wall, her eyes were still wide with shock and horror. What are you doing here? She asked quietly, standing up straight with her chin up in defiance. Did you come to finish the job? Itachi sighed and said, Izumi-chan. Just. Or should I just call you BB? Izumi. It was my first name and it will be my last, she said as she got ready to fight her former teammate. I'm not here to hurt you, he said, stopping his slow approach when she put her hands up as if to fight. Well, you did, she snapped. You killed everyone. You killed my parents, you killed my brother, you killed Shisui, and you killed the whole clan, she growled. And you wanted to kill me. I didn't want to kill you, he said, and the anger in his eyes made her stop talking. Shisui. He died protecting the village from Danzo, and I was blamed for it. The anger in his eyes faded, and he shrugged his shoulders weakly. But I won't deny killing the clan. The elders told me to. Why did you listen to them? Why didn't you tell Sandaime-sama? She asked with a frown and tears in her eyes. Itachi shrugged again. The Sandaime knew about Danzo's plans and supported them. Our clan was planning a coup for his seat, and Shisui wanted to hypnotize everyone in the clan with his Kotoa Metsukami, but Danzo found out and stole one of his eyes. He kidnapped you and told me to get rid of our clan. If I didn't do what he said, they would have killed you and tortured my brother to death. He told her about his plan to protect the village from the Akatsuki and how he had been beaten by Wave Country. Do you understand, Izumi-chan? I would never want to hurt you or Shisui, he said. On the day he was told to kill his clan, Izumi, who was then called BB, was in the hospital with severe food poisoning when she was attacked by a group of ninjas. She didn't know that a Yamanaka had changed her memories so that she thought Itachi had attacked and tried to kill her. If she had been at full strength on another day, she would have turned the ninjas into bloody smears on the ground. But that day, she was sick and weak from throwing up most of the night. Izumi Uchiha, along with her teammates Itachi and Shisui, was one of the best ninjas to ever come from the Uchiha clan. They had even put together a 4-part jutsu to show how well they worked as a team and how skilled they were in general. She was the team's spy master, and she had better control of her henge and chakra than the men. She could sneak in and out of the T&I without anyone noticing. After Itachi betrayed her, she hid in the shadows for a few years, her heart broken and her resolve as a ninja broken. She hadn't been able to control her emotions well enough to find a stable job as a baker until recently. This wasn't surprising, since baking was her second passion after being a ninja, which was her first. During the time she kept quiet and hid, she changed her name and face more than 37 times. She didn't even use a henge, but she never turned off her dojutsu unless she was sleeping. It was possible that this was the first time she had been found. None of the root ninjas sent after her had been able to get a clear scent of her. Izumi took a deep breath and shook her hands. I should have known Itachi-kun wouldn't hurt me, she said, closing her eyes tightly. How did you find me? This time, he gave her a small smile and took a step towards her. "Tracking seal on your scalp," he said. She wanted to hit herself in the face for letting this slip by her. The scalp was one of the oldest places to hide a tracking seal, as strange as that sounded. She laughed a little and said, "Idiot." She had been watching from the shadows as things happened in Konoha, from the Konoha exams to the execution of the advisors to the day the Kyuubi Jinchuriki revealed himself as the leader of Wave, but she had never been found out. "I wanted to get this off my chest and clear things up between us," she said, looking away with a small frown. "And I need your help. Konoha needs your help, Izumi-chan." She walked to one of her 3 ovens, put on a pair of oven mitts, opened the oven door, and took out a tray of shortcakes. "My ninja days are over, Itachi-kun. I'm happy with this life," she said. The man slowly nodded and walked over to her. She tensed up as she put the hot cakes on a table to cool while she put, I forgot the word, on top of a cake that was already cool. She relaxed when she saw that he was just watching her do it like he and Shisui always did when they were younger. It was a pleasant reminder of the past, and she smiled slightly. "Have you heard what's going to happen soon?" she asked. "Then you know the world needs your skills one more time, and then we can both retire." She froze for a moment, her eyes widening as she turned to Itachi. He looked back at her with his Sharingan turned on to confirm that he was also going to retire soon. She quickly went back to what she was doing. "I'm still dying and everyone still hates me, but I want to say one last thing before I leave active duty. I will always be with the light, protecting it from the dark." She didn't answer him, she just lowered her head slightly and said, "I want to end my career protecting what I love." He waited for her to say something, and when she finally did, she said, "I don't love Konoha or anyone else anymore. Everyone I loved died years ago." The male S rank's heart broke when he heard this. He closed his eyes and sighed, then opened them and put a hand on her shoulder. She shook and stopped making cakes. "You and I both know that's a lie," he said. "Itachi-kuna, please, just stop. You've always liked lying, Izumi-chan," he said as he slowly put his other hand on her hands and felt her shoulders shake. "PP please." She shut her eyes tightly and turned around so she could face him. Itachi said as he gently put her hair over her left ear between her eyes, "I want you to tell me the truth that you don't love anyone anymore." I do don't." The words stuck in her throat as she looked straight into his eyes, the way he placed both of his hands on her hands, almost shyly, and held them between them. Itachi-kuna please ya. The feelings she had been suppressing for years, the ones she had been killing since the day she had been kidnapped came pouring back. As she tried to speak, her face got hot and her tongue became stiff. "I haven't lied to myself since we were kids. I love you, Izumi-chan," she said. Her heart felt like it had been stabbed with a lightning bolt, and she gasped for air. He moved closer, and she instinctively bent her head so he could gently place his lips on her forehead. Tears fell from her eyes as more and more memories flashed through her mind, breaking the heart she had worked so hard to fix. He gave her a strong hug as she sobbed, but she shook her head and gently pushed him away with her mitten-covered hands. "Please, Itachi-kun, just go," she said, cutting him off as he was about to say something else. "Please. I need time." The male teen couldn't help but let his sadness show briefly in his eyes, but he quickly covered it up with a small smile. "Take all the time you need," he said as he walked past her, and she didn't turn to say goodbye. As he left the store, the bell rang. The first thing their broken team was told when they went into the Ambu Black Ops was not to lose their emotions. That if they let these feelings control them, even for a short time, it would kill them. Izumi cried sometimes because the one and only person she ever cared about broke her heart. Now, she realized that her memories of what happened before he left had been changed. The teenager fell to her knees as more and more tears fell from her eyes. She hugged herself and cried hard, crying for all the days she had cursed her crush for ruining her life and killing their clan. When they were kids, they would sometimes sneak out of the clan compounds to buy a cupcake from an Akamichi store. They would buy a lot of cupcakes and climb the Hokage monument to watch the sunset. Shisui would stand on the head of the Nidaime and say that he wanted to be the next Hokage. Itachi and she would watch him, but their support was still there even though they couldn't be heard. She and Itachi would hold hands without knowing it, and he kissed her forehead for the first time when they were 7 and had become a genin team. Before that, she had always known that Itachi was still alive, which made her hate him. But always, the first love is the strongest. She didn't know what she was doing when she jumped up and ran out of the shop after him. Nariko asked, "Sensei, how old are you?" She got a quiet hum in return. Naruto laughed as he glanced at the boy out of the corner of his eye. That, Nariko, is a secret, he said, turning back to face his team. His dark guards and the ninjas from Chill were surfing on the muddy water on a special type of speedboat made by smoke engineers. It was like a speedboat, but it had 3 propellers with horizontal blades instead of vertical ones. The front was pointed with steel and plastic to cut through the marsh, and there were flexible glass shields all around to keep the mud from spraying on them and leaving a mark. A marsh team had come to pick them up and take them to the village, which was one of their checkpoints before Lightning Country. The Wave Ninjas had one speedboat, and the Chill Ninjas had the other. Why can't we know your age, Naruto-sensei? Inari huffed and crossed his arm as he looked at his teacher. Why do you want to know? Inari asked him sharply, but Naruto was looking at the lone female genin, whose lips were tightly pursed so she wouldn't join in and ask how old her leader was. She tried as hard as she could to keep her mouth shut, but she couldn't. You look so young, and you're already S rank, she said. The blonde asked, is that all? As he turned back to face forward. He tried to hide his smile of amusement as Cam struggled to tell him more of what she was thinking, and as the marsh ninjas tried to listen over the noise of the boat. Nariko spoke up first, which was a surprise. It's also because we did some digging. Oh? He nodded and said, yes, we did some research and found out that since you have the Kyuubi and the Kyuubi attacked Konoha on your birthday 13 years ago, you must have gotten it from them. Using that reasoning, you should be 13 since you have the Kyuubi. Okay, let's say I really am 13. Would that be a problem? No, said Inari before Cam could say anything. You'll still be our leader and our sensei. We just want to know if it's true. The leader put one finger to his lips and waited until the boat hit a small bump, which caused the engine to make more noise as it worked harder, and the marsh ninjas focused on moving forward. People didn't really care about how old he was. Instead, they were more interested in what he could do for them. He didn't want people to know how old he was because so far, they had taken him seriously. If they knew that he was only 13 years old and a level 9.5 Fuinjutsu master and the leader of a country that was getting better and better, they might not take him seriously anymore. They had no reason to find out. Because he told them to be quiet, they chose to be quiet for the rest of the trip. At the docks of Hidden Marsh, they stopped. Naruto walked up to the female leader of the marsh, shook her hand firmly, and they both smiled. Naruto Dono, how have you been? I'm well. I hope our visit didn't cause you any trouble. She shook her head and let go of his hand so she could shake Yumi's. She waved for them to walk next to her and said, no, I'm glad you two could come. I see you're new here, Naruto Dono, he said with a nod. Then, if you don't mind, let me show you around my village. Since you plan to continue your journey soon, I'll have to move quickly, but your genin team can wait at our east gate. Thank you very much, to Dono, that would be very helpful. I need to go to the toilet. Somewhere. Tu laughed and motioned for a passing female chunin to come over. Please take her to a toilet so she can clean up, he said. The girl bowed to them and led the urgent Chill leader to a toilet. Now, if you don't mind, he said. By all means, said Naruto. The first place the woman with black hair showed the blonde was their hospital, where their doctors and doctors from the other 5 villages' countries were trained. Hidden Marsh might not have been a very well-known village, but their medical skills, and their marshes, made them known at all. Marsh was the only place where members of the Alliance could learn how to be medics, but they didn't know everything. Naruto pursed his lips as the woman led him through the many floors of the hospital, showing him where the children's ward was and where the ward for the elderly was. She even took him to the room where the Alliance ninjas were learning, where he saw some wave ninjas waving at him. She then took him to their school and proudly showed him the records of the students who had gone there. Next, they went to their training grounds. Each one was muddier than the last, until the last one was just a brown bog with thin water. Naruto almost couldn't water walk across it, but the leader of the village did it with ease. She showed him where her office was in case he wanted to go there on his own to talk to her. During the tour, Tu was a nice person to talk to. She could be a little rough and use bad language if something went wrong in front of him, but she was still a nice person. She even told him a little secret, which was that she was very suspicious of him from the first day they met. She had even told some of her ninjas to keep an eye on him when they were in his country. It wasn't the smartest thing she could have done, but she had been suspicious for a long time and was still alive. Strangely, what made her doubts go away was when he gave her a scroll of the same barrier seals that surrounded his island so she could use them to protect her own village. This barrier had kept marsh monsters away from her village better than her ninjas could. It seemed like a normal thing for Naruto to do for his best friends in the Minor Alliance. He didn't think twice about it, so he didn't notice the marsh leader's wide-eyed look when he gave her the scroll in his office. He had already moved on to telling her how to use the seals and where to put them, even though the scroll itself had instructions. The seals didn't show her a secret way to sneak into any other village if she wanted to, if there was one, but the fact that Naruto gave her the best all-element village defense without blinking made her feel strange. The Marsh family had always been in charge. The document that made the village could only be led by the descendants of the first daimyo's younger brother. Two wasn't even related to the royal family. The leader before her had taken her under his wing and made her an honorary member of the family while the rest of the family killed each other for his position. A fight in the family. She was shocked by how much trust her sensei had in her when he asked her to give his adopted son, who was his only child, her last name. The man was more interested in running Marsh than having children, so he took in the weakest person from the academy and trained her to run the village. She didn't know about his plan until they were on a mission to Earth Country and he told her she would take over. He loved his family, but he didn't like how eager they were to get his job. So, he didn't step in to stop the fights or find out who poisoned the food. She didn't trust people like her teacher did, so she made a mistake when she judged Naruto based on the tailed beast inside him. She apologized to him a lot in her office because of this. Again, the boy surprised her by forgiving her easily and telling her that at least he got to know his friend better. The tour took 2 hours, and at the end, Two gave Naruto a tight, friendly hug before waving them off. However, she didn't let them go until she had sent 3 teams to lead them to Lightning Country. She had even sent a messenger hawk to let the Raikage know that his guests were on their way. If they had gone through the North Gate, they would have gone to Fang. A country later, they would have reached Smoke. The farthest north they could go was Chill. This was just to let you guys know. It's not that important. That was a nice thing for her to do, Yumi said as she ran next to Naruto. She got something off of her mind. Could I ask? It's something private, he said simply. As they ran through the empty path through the forest, she tried not to frown. As they ran over the border into Lightning Country, there was silence until Mole, who was running behind Naruto, said, "Hey, Naruto." "Sir, someone's coming," said a blonde woman wearing a Junin flak jacket and carrying a Tonto sheath on her back. She ran up to Naruto and Yumi and bowed quickly. "Naruto-sama, Yumi-sama, my name is Yugito Ni, and Raikage-sama has sent me to take you to Kumo," he said. "Just you?" Yumi asked with doubt. Yugito nodded and bowed deeply with his wand. "He sends his deepest apologies. You were supposed to meet him in a week, but when he got your message, he didn't have many ninjas available to send as guards," he said. Naruto brushed past the other blonde and said, "It's fine, we were going to stop and set up camp here anyway." He pointed at Mole, and she and her team started getting their camp ready. The Chill ninjas were also helping. "Oh, well, that's good," Yugito said, keeping her head bowed until Yumi gave her the signal to relax. "If you want to stay, you can." When Yumi remembered that Naruto was with her, she gave him a sharp look and asked, "If you don't mind." "She can stay if she wants, and I even brought a spare blanket," he said, pulling a wooden chair from his elbow and sitting on it. He set his backpack on the ground and dug through it to find a thick but soft bright orange blanket. "I hope you don't mind the color," he said as he gave her the blanket and brought out 2 more chairs for Yumi and Yugito to sit down as well. His students were watching the Chill and Wave Guard set up camp and making mental notes of what they were doing so they wouldn't notice the other ninjas sitting down. Yugito bowed again as she took Naruto's blanket and said, "Thank you, Naruto-sama." She had just thought they were ready to run the last few miles to Kumo and sleep there, but maybe the trip had worn them out more than she thought. Naruto waved casually as he dug through his bag for his sketchbook and pencil. Then he sat down and looked around for something to draw. "If you don't mind me asking, Naruto-sama," he nodded as his bright blue eyes kept searching for something to draw among the trees that surrounded them, "do you have full control of your tailed beast?" "I've been friends with the Kyuubi since I was a year old, and we both respect each other. I can control more tails than I should be able to because Kyuubi helps me control the chakra. He told me that I need to beat him in a fight before I can really control his chakra. I haven't done that yet. So, no, I can't make all of his tails do what I want." Yugito slowly nodded and ran her hands over his blanket. I'm assuming you can control your Biju chakra, she said. Hi, Naruto-sama, she told him in reply. She expected more from the leader of Wave Country, who was both feared and respected. Based on what the Kumo delegation to Wave said about him, she thought he would show his power in waves. The only thing that showed he was even a little bit strong was how well he unlocked 3 chairs with his elbow. He now had them rolled down, but she could see that his arm was covered in tattoos of seals. Seal tattoos were a way for Uzumaki seal masters to show how much they knew about Fuinjutsu. She had also heard about other things he had done, like beating 2 S ranks, Gara of the Sand, showing Danzo Shimura's true colors, and making a S rank attack from scratch. Still, he was her superior in rank, tailed beast, and maybe even skill, so it was best for her to keep her opinions to herself until she knew for sure that he was as strong and skilled as the stories said he was. Everyone else slept that night except for the guards and Yugito. Naruto sat in his tent with his legs crossed and thought about things, just like he did every other night.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.